Hey, everybody, and welcome to our first official live Rethink Academy podcast. My name is Paula Mahoney, and here is my host with the most, George Shepherd. As most of you know who I am excited to kind of introduce you to George. George and I met at a mastermind that both of us are members of over 3 years ago. It's called the Experts
Board of
Empire
Experts.
Board of Experts. That's it. Led by Anik Singhal, and most of you here on this call will have heard me share lots of the wisdom that I've picked up on that over the years. And funnily enough, I didn't know George was a member when at the first event I went to, George was actually speaking on stage. And I remember you were speaking about the topic of autism and the topic of longevity. Um, and both of those immediately piqued my interest. And we had a chance to catch up later that day. And it turned out, George, because I'd missed most of your talk, actually. I remember coming in late from the flight, ran summits, virtual summits, and 360 Summits was the name of his company. And he basically was in an incredible position of hosting some of the largest online summits in the world where basically experts across the globe would reach out to his company and ask them, hey, can you run a summit on longevity? Can you run a summit on AI? Can you run a summit on autism? Can you run a summit on any type of topic, actually? So just by the very nature of his business, not only what had he a network and access to some of the greatest thought leaders in multiple areas of expertise across the globe, um, he also sat through all of those summits, so was very knowledgeable because every week he was literally listening to the global leaders in all these in this variety of topics, and we created a friendship right from the get-go. And more recently, at the last time that George and I met up in the States at the event, we shortly after that, a friend of mine, Rory Kilmartin, who many of you will know from the Rethink Relationships programs, um, started raving about this new service that he was signed up to that included podcasting, it included getting all of his social media distribution done. And Rory, I can tell you, if you even say the word social media or the two-word social media, like he breaks out in a rash. He absolutely cannot stand the thought of it, the nervousness about it, just hates being judged, hates being putting himself out there, all of those things that actually apply to a lot of people. And he was singing the praises. And I said, who's doing this for you? And he goes, oh, the guy you introduced me to, George Shepherd, which I thought was quite funny. I have an echo now, George. Not sure what happened there.
Yeah, it says something about turn up the volume.
You flicked
Uh,
something.
you you're going to get a little bit of an echo just because I've got it on two systems. Let me
Okay.
just change that. Okay, it should be good.
Okay. Um, and yeah, and basically, he explained to me that George was now doing this podcasting service where for very, very reasonable cost, he would basically sit with you every week, get your podcast recorded, and then depending on what you wanted, whether I was going to speak directly to camera or whether I was going to bring in guests and organize interviews, he had different price points. And I told him, I've been doing podcasts, how would I say, um, flirting with the idea of podcasting for many years. In fact, I even was in a studio over a decade ago and recorded 7 episodes that I never went ahead and produced. Um, so this time it was a bit different because after a few hits and misses, and that's the reality of what happened the first few recordings we made, I just wasn't exactly comfortable with, like, firstly, I wanted to do it on habits, then I wanted to do it on more just with me. And we tried maybe two, three, we did two, three episodes like that. And both of us would, George was being very polite about it, but we could tell that this wasn't going to be something that people were going to continue to listen to. It's like, you know what, I got it. I got the gist of it. 5 episodes, it's enough. So we decided to broaden the scope. And one thing I became uncomfortable with very quickly was just listening to the sound of my own voice. I'm so bored of listening to myself. Like, you guys cannot understand. I'm the only attendee of every webinar I've ever ran. I've been at them all, every single one, except even sometimes the recordings. I've been there. So you might get amazed at how bored you get of yourself after a while. And not only that, you kind of forget what you've just said. Did I say that? Or did I just think that? Um, and George decided one day to say, you know what, let's just have actually, George interviewed me for his podcast, and he wanted to showcase my story on my health and my transformation that took place. And it was so natural, it was so easygoing. Both of us had an equal amount to say on the topic. I was just as curious about what George had to think as George was curious about what I had to think about certain topics. And that was where the genesis of this idea came about, was that we wanted to broaden the scope, firstly, about what this podcast would be about. I love the Joe Rogan podcast. I love Stephen Bartlett's podcast. And the reason why I love those two podcasts in particular is it could be about anything. He generally, well, Joe in particular just brings on friends and kind of talks about whatever he likes. But I didn't want to just do that. And what I like about Stephen Bartlett is, he brings in, I suppose originally they were all meant to be CEOs, but he brings in very topical things that I'm interested as an entrepreneur. But sometimes I don't really want to listen to that too, because it almost feels a little bit too much, like mental stuff you got to learn, stuff you got to remember. He even has PowerPoints in there. So this felt perfect, that the Rethink Academy podcast would be a general conversation about rethinking multiple areas of life, all areas of life, your relationships, your earnings, your Tao, your health, your investings, your network, your knowledge, your fun, but in a casual way, in a referential way to experts that we know. We're going to keep it open to bring in experts that we have access to in due course. We've a lot to say before we get to that point, even. And last Friday, how many of you, by the way, in the chat, just let me know, because you are live on the chat right now. We can all see your messages. Thank you, Biljana. Thank you, Mary. Um, on our last conversation, how many of you had a chance to watch the recording of the video? I know we only sent it out 2 days ago on YouTube. Just let me know how many of you. Yeah, okay, 80 has. Anybody else?
Only one person.
I'm sure there's a lot more. Yeah, okay, here they come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so the reason why I'm asking that question is because you'll have seen the idea and where it came from ultimately, right? Um, where what we wanted to do was change the dynamic about your standard, or of your average podcast. And let me explain what that means. Um, we're very familiar with listening to experts that we know. It's just part of what we do nowadays. It's a thing with podcasting. It's highly unlikely that you, as a listener, let me rephrase that. It's possible that you, as a listener, have considered the idea of having a podcast yourself, and feel free to pop that into the chat. And one of the podcasts that I was listening to recently, the Modern Wisdom podcast, which I also like and is in the top 10 in the world, with Chris Williamson, has shared recently that of all podcasters that have ever started, only 10% have ever recorded, I believe, 20 episodes. And then I believe, and you can, don't quote me on this, but it's pretty close to this anyway. Of those 10% that continue, only 10% of them actually will record that same amount again. So there's a tiny percentage of people who start off with all guns blazing, they get excited. And believe me, when you start a podcast, it's exciting, it's new, you're kind of like, this is going to be great. Um, but why do only, let's say, 1 in 100 continue with it? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it becomes crickets. It's You feel like you're just speaking to yourself after a while. It's even where, let's say George wasn't here with me and I'm just chatting to myself and here making a recording, hoping that someday somebody's going to listen to this and wonder, is it even going to be relevant by the time that somebody gets around to it? Because what a lot of people say is, oh, by the way, your first 100 are going to be crap. You don't want anyone to listen to them anyway. Right? And that sounds fine when they say it when they're on episode 200, but that doesn't sound fine when you're on episode 2 and you've got 98 to go before you even realize that you're meant to be getting good at this. I know I'm doing a lot of talking here and I'm going to pass across to you in a second, George, and take a breath, but I'm trying to just give context to all of this. So, what we spoke about last Friday, and then we decided to turn on the mics and let's just go and record it, was George had an experience with two of his clients who are also in our mastermind, Colton and Rocio, who had basically done kind of a webinar slash podcast relatively recently, and they were teaching people exactly how to build out an AI agent or something similar to that live. And people were watching every step of the way. And at the end of it, they just said, look, by the way, if you just want us to do this for you, just let us know, just send us a message. And they were obviously, people were there. So like in a webinar status, um, but almost better than a webinar because they didn't have fancy slides, they didn't have the stack, they didn't have the pitch, polished, and and if you do this, you get your bonus, and you get this, and your guarantees. And look, I'm not speaking down on that stuff. That stuff works. It's been a huge part of my success in my career to date. But it just felt extremely natural and authentic for them to do that because people were saying, this is great, but you know what? I'm not going to do this. I know my limits and I know I'm not going to be able to do it. And at the same time, you've got or it's not George, Gary V. Uh, Gary Vaynerchuk, who I shared a message with you last night, George, where Gary V reckons that the next $1 trillion business model is going to be live selling, and in particular, live selling on TikTok, which is basically people talking about stuff that they like, right? I've got some masking tape here, and I'm talking about this masking tape is amazing. It looks in every way like every other piece of masking tape, but this is a little bit different. And here's why. By the way, if you want that, I'm just going to pop a link in the chat there and you can buy it. So like the old idea of QVC, the shopping channel, but way more engaging, people able to ask questions. And George's expertise is podcasting. My expertise has been webinars. And the future, if not the present, is um, this idea of live selling. And at the same time, we know podcasting continues to explode. It's the best way to build trust with people in the long term. So there's like four legs of a table there that suddenly became really obvious to us. It's like, why can we not combine the four? Why can we not do this in a way that let's do this in a style where instead of waiting for a podcast to take off and get 100,000 subscribers, why don't we open it up so people can see the flaws? People can see you when you're not good. People can see when you're getting organized. And people can see that this is very doable. But more than anything, instead of this being the Joe Rogan show or the Stephen Bartlett show or the Chris Williamson show, this is the show about you, where we want you to be the star, where you basically help guide the conversation. Instead of us having to read comments in 6 years' time about an episode that you saw, that we can actually literally adjust our commentary, adjust the answers that we're giving right here live in these podcasts so that you feel that you are truly part of the show. You not only feel being listened to, you actually are being listened to. And we want to address the real objections that people have on whatever topic it is that is brought up, whether it's health, whether it's wellness, whether it's spirituality, whether it's networks, speaking, whatever it is, that we can address it there and then. And we have lots of exciting components of that, including a book, etc., which I'll talk about in a few moments. But with that said, George, let me just pass across to you because I've been going for 13 minutes solid here without even taking a breath. So,
You need a drink, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I need a drink.
You're
I need to
getting your
spill some
steps in,
coffee.
but not enough water.
But I'm
Yeah.
so excited about this. I have to say, I can't remember the last time I've been this excited about a project.
Yeah. I mean, when you're sitting on the sidelines, and most people sit on the sidelines for a period of time before they decide to jump in the game, you get the distinct advantage of seeing what everyone's talking about instead of being in action, and you kind of get focused and you're just doing your thing like with blinders on, right? So sometimes you go down that tunnel vision, you miss everything else that's going on around you. And with AI changing so often at this point in time, like we're I sat on the sidelines for a long time too, just with deciding to do the podcast side of the business. Because I've been telling everyone we do it in the summits, we do a summit with me. It's like, imagine 30 podcast episodes compressed into 3 days. That's basically what a summit is, or 30 webinars compressed into 3 days. That's primarily what a summit is. And I tell everyone, like, when you finish your summit, you've got 10,000 plus people. Like hanging on your every word. They want a solution, whether it's, hey, my kid has autism, and what are some solutions for that? So we actually have done a number of autism summits, for example. The parents actually got so much value out of it, helped them actually change the dynamic of their families around that, just because the system for doing summits works pretty much in every niche, just like the system for doing podcasts, system for doing webinars. It's just a system, it's an overlay, right? If you know that template framework, you can apply that to almost anything. Same thing with the live selling. So I would tell them, you don't want to just stop the conversation after you get your summit done. You have to do a podcast. You have to do a podcast. You have to do podcasts. So I decided, okay, I should probably put my money where my mouth is and start doing the podcasting and just show people what we're doing. And then when I started doing that, people started asking me, hey, I've been thinking about doing a podcast. Or they say something, off the cuff. They'd be like, well, I started and stopped a few times, or I recorded like Rocio and Colton. They said, yeah, we recorded like 4 episodes or 5 episodes a year ago and never launched it. And we're just so busy. And I'm thinking, okay, my mind says that's a problem I can solve. Number one, who else has this problem that I can solve? Number two, and is this is solution marketable to the masses? That's usually what I start to say, yeah, in my own mind before I decide to make any kind of an offer to people. And the easiest thing to do is to do a service-based type of business. And with AI disrupting so many people's lives, if you don't feel it now, you will. Within 3 years, you'll either be out of a job, or your job that you have will be radically different because you'll be utilizing AI. Your customers will be utilizing AI. Your peers will be utilizing AI. There's just no way around it, unless all of a sudden all the tech in the world just stops working. In that case, which we've seen that movie, that doesn't help. Like, we're not going to be in a better place. That all happens. So the idea right now is, okay, let's get ahead of the trend. Let's see if we can, launch this. So when you do a service-based business, it's one-to-one. You're literally solving the problem. You don't have to create a piece of software. You don't have to write a course. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to do anything. It's literally, hey, Paul, do you need some help launching your podcast, right? Well, what do you say if I helped you do that? Same thing with Rory. I had a great conversation with Rory, giving the backstory to how I met Rory. We were sitting at that mastermind table, eating lunch or dinner or something like that. And Paul whips out his phone. He says, hey, check this thing out I've been doing recently. And he showed me this picture of him. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, you're ripped. What the heck did you do? And he's like, oh yeah, this is a really short window of time. Like, this is the first 6 weeks. And that was enough for me. 6 weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that. Because I had started to get a little bit of a dad bod. I'm like, all right, all right, all right. This is the perfect timing for me. You got to connect me to this guy. And then, or no, that was with another thing. And then he started talking about this thing with this guy, Rory, who archetypal wisdom is his website. And it's all about understanding your partner, understanding people. There's like 4 different archetypes. And it's amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like, nailed this, nailed this, nailed this. So I said, could you introduce me to him? Because I'd love to get him on one of our podcasts. And so he did that. And in that conversation, it came up. He just said, yeah, I've thought about doing a podcast for a while, but, and then of course the yeah, buts come out. I'm like, well, we have a program for that. I'm starting to help people that, some friends of mine. How would you like to do this? And he's like, I would love to do that. Oh my gosh. I was just talking to my partner the other day about this. And like, these things just kind of happen, So I personally think that the podcast space, with self-driving cars, like, everyone's going to end up with some form of a self-driving car, or a self-policing car, one of the two. We'll see what that ends up being. Hopefully not the latter sooner. But we're going to end up with these situations. We're going to be consuming more content. So consumption behavior has changed quite a bit as well. So the fastest path to cash for anyone to get started in something that actually means something to them, that they can monetize, is going to be, in my opinion, podcasting. You don't need to be an expert on anything. You just need to be able to turn on the camera, and your hair doesn't even have to be perfect. Your dress doesn't have to be perfect. You don't even have to have lights in the background. Actually, if I turned the camera around and you guys saw my entire studio, you'd be like, wow, that is definitely movie magic. But that's really all you need to do to get up and running. And more importantly, people are going to be missing purpose in their life. Because imagine the accountant or lawyer who's been completely replaced by AI. The last 4 legal contracts I've done them all in AI. I've seen enough contracts that I literally just have to have my attorney from time to time look over the things, say, how's this look? And they're like, of course they want to earn their keep. So they're like, oh, you should have this one thing in there. And it's like, it's pretty close to the same thing I had, man. I paid you $500. Okay. But that's, we're eventually not going to need all that stuff anymore. You want a recipe? Like, recipes used to be huge for me. I was putting 100 leads a day on my list because I had a bunch of recipe websites that I bought like 20 years ago. But you could just go ask ChatGPT or Grok or any of the, Claude, for example, hey, I'm thinking about making chicken, or take a picture of your refrigerator and say, what can I make out of this leftover stuff? And like the AIs will actually research it, look it, recognize it, give you some ideas, tell you what you're missing, give you a shopping list, even order it on Instacart for you, and it arrives the same day, even while you're at work. It's crazy. We're heading into an area that's just so foreign to anyone. And I think this is the next logical step for anyone who's either wants to have more purpose in their life because they lost their identity, because it goes away with your job if your job gets outsourced to some other version of, living, or you just have to find a way of making some money, making ends meet, so not to go too far down that path, I figured I would
Yeah,
give Paul enough time to have plenty of drinks there, get rehydrated.
you did. Thank you. And that's how this is going to be, guys. It's the intention certainly is it's a conversation. It's a conversation that George and I have. Like you've probably heard of the idea of the fireplace interview. um, except that you guys get to join in, right? And thank you, by the way, for all the comments and questions coming in here. Interesting to see. So you've got a variety of different levels of expertise in podcasting here. Like Victoria started her Inner Mind Code podcast in January. They're on episode 8, two more in the pipeline. And yeah, she said you often hear that you need to do 100 gigs to be officially a stand-up comedian, and it's kind of similar. I can't disagree with that actually. And I'll tell you, George, I haven't even said this to you actually, but Joe Rogan talks about this a lot with stand-up comedy. He talks about how quickly you lose the ability to get your jokes right, to nail your timing, to if you don't keep touring, if you don't keep practicing. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, I've done my best to step out of the arena of doing live events. Just it just got a bit too much over time. And it is so true. It's the exact same with stand-up comedy. You do lose your timing. You lose things that were just natural to you because I don't generally like I'm if I'm speaking now, it's speaking within the business, chatting to my team, and I have one mastermind a week, Monday at 5:30, and I do one more session on a Wednesday, but that's it. I'm not getting a chance to actually think through ideas and start. You do lose your ability to be quick on your feet. Also being adaptable to what's happening, what's going on in the current environment. So um, let's get into the main thing that we haven't talked about yet, um, which got us excited about this idea of going live. As entrepreneurs, and I'm finding this about George, we're quite similar in this way, very in terms of being creatives. If we don't have a deadline, it ain't going to happen. That's the first thing, right? So it's not that we don't have a shortage of ideas. It's the opposite. We always have ideas. I mean, I drive my team crazy, but they know if they just wait 48 hours, I'll probably forget what I asked them to do. They've just become used to that. So unless I'm giving them a deadline or a timeline, they know I'm not serious about it. So the moment that we kind of made this agreement last Friday that, oh, you know what, let's do our next podcast live. Actually, let's do a few of these live. Oh, you know what, let's do them all live. Um, we said, okay, well, we want to build community here and we want to build this around something meaningful where we can teach in real time exactly how we would do something, warts and all, um, without the slides, without an offer, just truly no agenda other than just teaching, coaching, and interacting, engaging, and getting live feedback. And I had organized for I think the day before last Friday, actually, I had just got um, acknowledgement from one of my book publishers that we were going to get to showcase the Rethink books, the Rethink collection in New York City, Times Square, the NASDAQ billboard, which I've never been on before, on May 29th, which is a Friday, and it was exactly 6 weeks from last week's podcast, or more what we'd probably call a video now, but a video recording when we were just chatting. And George and I played with the idea, well, what if we set ourselves a challenge that by next 29th of May. Firstly, I said, George, is your calendar free? Can you come to New York? He goes, well, I don't need to check. I'm going to be there. Um, and secondly, I said, well, why don't we set ourselves a challenge that we add a new book to the Nasdaq billboard that doesn't even exist right now. We don't even know what it's going to be called, but we're going to deliver this in real time with a live audience. We're going to share with them every step of the way how we went from no idea to an idea to a New York Times Square best-selling book in that short period of time, that short window. And what we want to do is to basically, through these next 5, 6 episodes, is to walk everybody through this journey with us, share with you exactly your thoughts. We'll actually be thinking about what the next steps are as we are going through this. We're not having separate meetings to this. So you're going to hear us chat about this. As George referenced, I think it was the last session about the 4 hour work week. Maybe you can come back to that in a few moments, George, and reference that. But what we want to do is literally walk you through the process. We'll start in a few moments. I'll pass across to you, George, in a moment. But what I want to start today with officially is to show you what we've got done since last Friday. So the intention is, just to be clear, is to write a brand new best-selling book for the Rethink collection that's going to be live on Times Square May 29th. George and I will be there in front of the billboard. It literally doesn't exist right now. And make it a bestseller in that time at the same time. So, but here's the catch, because there's going to be a lot of you going, yeah, fair enough, easy for you, blah, blah, blah. The rules are I'm not allowed to just reach out to my publisher and say, do you mind uploading this? We have to do the vast majority of the work ourselves, right? Because I've become disconnected to a lot of what we do in the company, like running ads, building funnels, all that type of stuff. But there are certain things I actually would thoroughly enjoy, like creatives, making graphics and stuff that I haven't done in a long time. So as much as possible, we're going to do the work literally ourselves without leveraging our teams or our connections. So this is without using any of the publishers that we have foregone relationships with, or graphic designers that we would have paid in the past to do a similar thing.
Yeah. Was that my cue?
That's your cue. That's
All right.
my
So,
second inhale.
so yeah, I'm going to be writing the book this weekend, actually. I told him that I'm going to be Saturday and Sunday. I'm just going to kind of set aside some time, plenty of coffee, and finish up the book, make that happen. Um, and again, that whole same thing of like, oh yeah, but it's easy for you. Well, no, not really. Not when you write it yourself and you don't have a ghostwriter, because you're going to look at everything. You're like, is that good enough? And I'm going to rewrite that. You know, you have to be kind of disconnected from that. So that's part of it. And yeah, there's so many aspects of this, Paul, that I know we'll get to over the next
Yes.
so much time here we have, but the live selling thing is super exciting for me because it's something no one's really done, and I see people starting to do that with these video channels on YouTube, which are kind of quasi podcasts. They're sort of social media stuff, but I've also been the guy I see some of these people that I know that are in some of them are in the same mastermind. Some of them are just not. I've met them through, other events. And I was funny. I was on a cruise. It was I think for a webinar event. Maybe it was like a month ago. And I remember these girls were in the corner, very well-known people. I'm not going to say their name, but they're doing all this and I'm like, I made a comment to the person next to me. I'm like, that is so inauthentic. It just feels so foreign to me. Like, what are they doing? What the hell? And then I started seeing them come out on their social media channels with, you know, this little bit of blurb on a reel, like this is what I've done to go from zero to millionaire in 6 weeks or something, some audacious claim. Click the first comment in the chat explains it all. It's just like, but these things, that's the kind of like the basic, and I'm just like, I could never do that because it just feels so weird. But I thought to myself, like, what can I do? Well, have a conversation with people. That feels comfortable, and even the podcasting side of things, because there's two different ways that you do podcasts. Kind of like we're going to straddle the line of the podcast concept and, some of this putting it all together concept is you could either speak solo or you can do an interview. Those are really two primary ways of doing a podcast episode. So the idea behind podcasting of like solo podcasting is 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of you giving a dedicated insight every day because we're creatures of habit. Again, that's like if you understand who your audience is, you want to meet them where they're at, whether they're on the commute to work, in a car, on a train, a bus. Maybe they're just getting up, having a cup of Joe in the morning, reading the newspaper. People still do that. I don't know. All of these things, but you meet them where they're at. So you give them that quick little, tidbit. And, if they're on the John, they got 15 minutes to get her done and they got that podcast to listen to, but you're giving them little tidbits. And I said, if you're doing 15 minutes, you just do it every single day,
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because they build that frequency. They know they can wake up every day. They got that piece of content that's going to help them. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is doing these long Joe Rogan style. Rogan's getting a lot of play on this one, 3 hour podcasts. And what I mentioned to Paul, I said, the podcasts and summit interviews, I've been doing them wrong for 20 years. He's like, okay. I'm like, I was trying to keep everything compressed in about a 50-minute time frame because it's like I want to get content out that's been pre kind of ordained, meaning like when we create a summit, I'll say, what's the totality of what someone wants to learn about this? So if it's like autism, like what are the questions in the person's mind that need some help? Like what are the things that they say in the dead of night that are very judgmental to themselves? They would probably only ever say to God, right? With no judgment. I write those down. And then from that, we create episodes, or in this case, for a summit, we create sessions for the summit. And I have each of those sessions be an interview with a particular expert on that subject. It makes things a whole lot easier. And you can take your podcast, you can do the same type of thing. You say, who's your audience? What do they stay up in the dead of night? What keeps them up at night? What are the things that they desperately look for answers for to help them overcome their challenge? Because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for solutions. And if you can be the person that's bringing that to them, they will be forever grateful to you. And it also gives you a chance to just feel like you're doing something good for somebody else, instead of speaking into the vacuum, because that's not what we're doing. Even though it might feel it when you're doing a podcast, you're doing a summit, you're doing a webinar, you might have 5 people show up or 0 people. I've been on webinars before where literally no one showed up. And I'm thinking, should I even just do it? Is someone going to show up 5 minutes later? I'm just talking about defeating. That's been the most defeating thing in the world to feel. But when you do that, you just turn on the light switch and you say, I'm going to go, whether there's one person or 1,000 people there. So, but when you're speaking into that void, you don't know if anyone's ever going to listen. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one around to hear, did it make a sound? You know, that type of thing. So, with the process of doing um, the book is a big part of this because we're rethinking the way that podcasts are put together, whether it's the live selling component, whether it's like you can do a podcast on your own. You don't need to have a guest. You don't need to have a team. You don't need to have an infrastructure. You don't even need to be famous. And what's funny is most podcasts, you can make 7 figures a year doing a podcast that has a very few subscribers. And when I talk about very few, I'm talking about less than 100 to 1,000, because people will do a podcast interview with you a lot of times without you being famous. And they'll do a summer interview without you being famous. But if the topics are right and the subject matter rings true to their audience, if you build it, they will come, is what everyone's thinking. But you still have to do the work to bring people there. Otherwise you have a little bit of egg on your face if they're going to give you an hour. But you'll be able to get people on there that normally you'd have to spend 1,000 to 10,000 or more dollars retaining them for a private consultation, but you can ask them anything you want to on a podcast. So some deals that are done on the back end of podcasts, on the back end of summit interviews, I've had personally multiple 6-figure and 7-figure deals come out of doing interviews with people, and just meet some amazing people and realize they're not at all like they are on stage, or they are in the public stage, I should say, because sometimes people turn on a persona in the public eye, but they're extremely withdrawn outside of turning the camera on. Like really strange, like completely opposites what you would think, but they're still beautiful human beings, in some ways. So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I'm super excited to be able to rethink that here with you guys. And thanks to Paul for even offering that, because that was part of the conversation is like, what if we did that book as Rethink Podcasting? Since we're doing this, and just kind of like it all started to congeal. We're like, all right, we can make that happen. And it was literally at that point in time, like, you're doing this, I'm doing this, like, boo, 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 boo. Okay, how are we going to get this thing done? And let's document the process along the way so people see this happening in real time. They know it's not fake. They can see the sausage making in the background because they're going to need it, you know. And rarely do people actually show you all of the screw ups. Like I spilt my coffee, totally, and I have literally never done that before an interview. That was not staged. I spilled it all over my desk. Things weren't working right, you know, but that's how it works. You know, when you're getting stuff together, it's never perfect.
Yeah, well, we need something for the bloopers reel, so that's ideal. I will just follow on that. And the reason why you're actually perfect to chat to about podcasting is because how casual you are about income you make from it, and it was never your primary business, right? So many of the podcasting courses and programs out there, that's the drive. It's I'm going to convince you that podcasting has to be the way, it's the only way. And you know, that's it, you're going to follow this. And with you, it's like, this is a demand, right? Lots of people I know are doing this. I know how to do it easily. So let's just plug it in. And what's going to be great, I think, about the book and the teachings that we provide in the next 6 weeks on this is that it's going to be so varied in terms of the topics. You're not coming in here speaking to me as an online marketer, as so many people are. It's you have such exposure from the Summit's background into areas that most people here, I'm sure, have a deep connection with, but never felt that there was going to be an opportunity for them to have a voice. I have a question for the audience, by the way. How many of you want to, so let me ask you, do you want to be known and famous and actually be like a public figure? Just put in number one if you do. And if actually you don't want to be, just please type in number two. So I'm kind of, it'd be interesting to know what the split is here
Got a
between.
question, a variation on that too. If type in three, if you'd prefer to help public figures with their brand, meaning like if we could teach you how to do what I do with the podcasting business, like I would be very curious to see if who would want to do that as a business opportunity.
It's it's a very good mix of one, twos, and threes there.
A lot of
But
ones,
yeah,
a lot more than I would have thought.
it's about a third, a third, a third, interestingly. Some people have put in three and another number as well. We should go, actually, George, here's an idea. I'm going to give you an action.
Uh-oh.
Can you grab that for the next day? You know that website where you can for free, um, people just click on a link and they give their vote, so we can then show them live what the pie chart is of the breakdown of what people said. You know, there's a free site to do that. I don't know it off the top
Oh,
of my
like was it Survey Monkey or something?
It's something like that, but it's even easier. It's just I've seen speakers do it before that live on stage. People just type it, you know.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't even know what the site is. I have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, yeah, let's find it for next week because that's super cool. Then people can see actually because you know even if we do have to chat private because we don't want people distracted with it, but at least we can Slido. Thank you, Sylvia. This is why you guys are the guests. You're the star of the show. Slido, that is what it's called. Slido, George. Let's get
Gotcha.
that set up for our future podcast because that'll be awesome in terms of you guys getting real time feedback of what's going on here. Yeah, you said something there I'd completely forgotten about, which is obviously core to all of this, which is the idea of the the live selling component. So that triggered a huge thought for me that I'd forgotten about. Like one of the core reasons that it's called Rethink Podcasting, which I hadn't mentioned until George did, so that we decided to go with that book was I mentioned earlier, right? 1 in 100 people continue with podcasts. I would make the argument that certainly the people I listen to, they could stick with it for hundreds, if not thousands of episodes because it was a hobby for them. They'd already made their money. It didn't matter. It was irrelevant to them. They enjoyed meeting their friends. They enjoyed learning new things. I'm certainly at a stage of my career that I love the idea and get excited by the idea of speaking to someone that's going to inspire me. That's somebody that knows way more than I know on that topic, and they're just about to crystallize it into an hour or two for me. I get excited by that. There's very few things in your regular day-to-day work that you'll get that sense of excitement about. So I can see why people who don't need it for the money will stick with it. And then, of course, the irony is that's how they end up making a lot of money from it because they're not, in a sense, trying to make money from it. But most people, I would say, if we're being honest with our listeners here, you don't have that luxury, right? So it's the likelihood of you starting and sticking with it is so low. And we all have heard Here's the process. Start it off, make your mistakes, do your first 100, get decent at it, be happy that nobody's listening because you're actually crap. And then you know what's going to happen? This hockey stick growth. It's just going to happen. Just take our word for it, right? That's what you hear. But you're only hearing that you see those results from the people who stick with it, and because they start to see those results, they're the results you hear about. And then you start to monetize because then you've enough subscribers on YouTube or even enough subscribers on your podcast, um, that sponsors become interested, right? And even the biggest podcasts in the world seem to have time for sponsors, right? And they make a lot of money from sponsors. I mean, Black Rifle Coffee, from Whisper Flow, from Stephen Bartlett's Habits Diary. Yeah, I hear them so often. Yeah, they even just come top of mind. With Chris Williamson, he has this, smart kind of, he flips away to it and he makes this joke and then talks about this thing he has with longevity or whatever it is. Um, but you win there because you get paid because of the amount of subscribers that you have. It's very clinical. Yes, by the way, I agree. The podcasters, those guys in particular, tend to use the product, so it's quite authentic. Um, but that takes time, right? That takes a lot of time, and certainly when you're beginning, even if a sponsor comes in that you mightn't be overly comfortable with, you're like, well, do I keep going? Maybe I'll just accept the cash. But I don't want you to be faced with that dilemma. So George and I were like, well, how do we completely rethink podcasting that you actually start to make money from the first episode? Literally the exact opposite of what you've ever seen, learned, or heard about podcasts before. And to be fair, I've never heard anyone make that claim. We're going to show you how to make money from your first podcast until now, right? Which is a big challenge, monetizing from episode one. But it was just so blatantly obvious to us. All of these things were converging at the one time and said, well, why don't you do this in a way where it's extremely natural, where we talk about what we're talking about and say, oh, by the way, um, if you're keen on whatever we just talked about, just go to this link. You can get it here now. Rather than having to go reach out to that company, hey, do you want to come as a sponsor? And then they go, yeah, let's no, just talk about it the way you would speak to your friend. Oh, I went to the movies last night. What did you go see? Oh, I went to see Avatar, the third one. Oh, was it any good? Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm gonna go. Right. That for me is social selling. It's selling without the intention of selling. So how we're going to do this is actually show you live as we're doing the call, money being generated. Now, we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars, right? This is day one. We're talking a few dollars. Like monetization means making a few dollars from day one. So that's actually a real challenge that I had to sit down and think about last Friday to go, okay, how are we going to monetize next week? Because I want to keep everything on point. I only want to recommend something that makes sense for us to recommend. Um, so it put pressure on me to get a couple of things done that I'd never done in that short space of time before. So let me do a quick screen share here and show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you the process, show you how they,
You might need to also screen share on Riverside too.
okay, no idea
So
how to
that would
do,
be two of those.
no idea how to do that, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay, does everybody see this image?
Yeah, I see it on the Zoom.
Easy and Zoom. Okay, now let me see how on earth do I get into Riverside? Do the same. Here's Riverside.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the chat for Riverside. Anyone who wants to use it, right? I mean, there's an example of social selling there.
Okay, share presentation. We'll go with screen. Okay, now it's on both. You see it in Riverside too?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, um, this is the first book cover that I created without a graphic designer or without any help, and it was done in. I mean, I don't want to downplay how much effort I put into this, George, but probably about 7 minutes. And
It looks great.
I want to show people exactly how this happened, right? So that there's no, again, because I didn't want to use Anyone else? I didn't want to use a. Have I stopped sharing on Riverside as well?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Um, so let me go into ChatGPT and show you exactly how we did this.
Linda's asking about what is Riverside.
Yeah, good
So
question.
Riverside's a platform for doing interviews like this one. It's riverside.fm. That's not affiliate link. That's actually their website. They should hopefully pay us someday for that. But it gets very high quality recordings. And like the thing about Zoom when you're doing these kind of interviews, Zoom is dependent upon your internet connection. So if one person has a crap internet connection, you're going to get that jaggedy like or just drop someone off completely. Riverside records locally on your own computer in your browser and then uploads every minute back into the system and then stitches it all together. So you can have up to 4K video recording. So we do all of our podcast interviews, all of our summit interviews and stuff now on Riverside as opposed to doing it in Zoom. Zoom is the easiest one. If you don't really care, then you can just do it in Zoom. But Riverside's not that expensive. It's less than $100 a month. You can do something like that. And it's much better quality. But there's downsides to everything. So there's a few things that you need to know about Riverside. As far as Zoom is great for muting background noise. So if there's like the landscapers out back or something like you won't hear it on Zoom, but you'll hear it on Riverside because it doesn't do the attenuation or the modeling of the sound, just so you know that. So there's a couple things to be aware of.
Yeah, that's all very useful. Okay, perfect. So I'm sharing now on both. So I was as some of you know, I had this was the original plan for my podcast with George last week was I said, George, I have a deadline. I just launched the Rethink Planner. I launched Rethink Time Management last Wednesday. We've got bestseller. Woohoo, fantastic. But one of the QR codes in there is sends people to download my meditation app in the morning. So I'd like to kind of use our session to record a meditation app. And pretty quickly the topic changed very quickly. And ironically, like the name Destiny Diviner, the destiny that was divined from that podcast took a completely different direction very quickly. But I still needed to get it done last Friday. So I'm ChatGPT created this for me. I'm not going to go through how that was created because it's kind of not really relevant to this now, but it is relevant to the conversation. So I just gave a feedback and said, "Oh my God, I love it." Um, and then ChatGPT gets back to me and says, "Yeah, I'm delighted you love it." Blah 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 blah. And I didn't bother reading what it said next. So then, by the time I looked back up, I said, "Look, while you were on a roll." So this is the funny thing about this. People talk about prompt engineering and how important it is. I just speak to this thing like it's a really smart friend of mine. So I kind of give it a compliment and say, look, while you're on a roll, can I get help with the design for the next Rethink book? Here are the current templates. Okay. So again, I didn't even read its recommendations. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So I uploaded just these images here so it understood what the template was. So you can literally take a template that you like of any Amazon book from the Amazon bookstore and upload it and say, this is the book cover I would like. So now not only are we showing you how to do a podcast, we want to show you how you can create a best-selling book, exactly how we're going to do it. But you need to help us with this, by the way. But we want to show you how we can do our part, then we hand it over to you, then we hand it back to us. So as always, ChatGPT gives you lots of compliments. Oh, these are excellent. You're already blah 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 or whatever. I don't need to know any of this. I was like, I just wanted to be. So here I said, please create rethink podcasting in the same style, please. So like, if you think about this, like I'm on my laptop. It's a Friday night. I find while it's giving me this stuff, I'm not reading it. I'm just looking for the pictures of the books. I upload it. And then by the time I look down again, it says all this stuff. I just ignore it and I go straight to, look, could you just please create the Rethink podcasting in the same style? Right. So that's how simple that is. And it came back with this. Right. And I said nothing. I didn't say anything about build your voice, grow your audience, make an impact. Okay. But it was very close. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Now, from my perspective, the coloring of the font is important because within Rethink, we follow the rainbow spectrum. So relationships is red, earnings is orange, and so on. So for me, podcasting, I know it could be under earnings, but I prefer it to be kind of networks, right? It mainly it's about building your network, building your connections, building your visibility in that sense. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, no, actually, it won't work. So let me show you what happened next. I said, can you make, okay, my first request was, can you make the stand to be made of gold, right? So the reason I did that was it just looks like a regular mic and a regular headset. So I was like, okay, if I could just make it gold, it would at least imply money, right? It would imply value. It would imply this is worthwhile doing. Okay, so it did that. I was like, okay, perfect, nailed it. Um, Secondly, I said, thank you. Please change the text to the same text color as Rethink social media advertising above, right? I didn't know even what the font color is. Like if you're working with a graphic designer, they're going to tell you, can you tell me the number that's associated with that color? Like, Jesus, it's violet or all, that stuff drives me bananas because I've no idea. So I just said, could you just pull the same color as this other book? Right? So it did that. Notice what I'm doing, by the
You know,
way.
the craziest part about that, Paul, is it knows.
It
Six
knows.
months ago, you could put that in there and be like, I'm sorry, sir, can you tell me what what kind of number or color pack? Like it wouldn't know that, but it knows that now. It can actually look at an image and it just knows that. And that's like less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months. Just imagine what, yeah, 6 months will bring. We'll talk about this in other episodes. But look what I'm doing, though. That's really important here. One command at a time. Right? I think about like when I talk to my kids or whatever. It's like just if you want one thing done, just get one thing done. Like we've got time here. This is moving really quickly. This is like in seconds, it's producing it. I feel like messaging George at Friday night. Going, George, this is unbelievable. Look what I'm done. Right? Then I said, okay, great. Now change the tagline to how to monetize from episode one. Right? So when people see the title, they go, okay, how are they doing podcasting differently? How to monetize from episode one, right? Which is exactly what we're doing today on episode one, which is part of the book. So you are literally part of the book creation as we do this, right? So we scroll down. Now, what do you notice is missing? Let's see in the chat. Anybody notice what's missing? The author. I'm not going to be the author of this. I need somebody that's better at me, a lot better at me, a podcast to do this. So I asked him, great. And now add the name of the co-author, George Shepard. Okay, done. Great. Said now tagline change to monetizing from episode one. So there must, okay, so look what happened here. This is really actually good. So I looked at it now again. I said, how to monetize from episode one. I was like, yeah, it's a bit wordy. So I just said, could you now just change it to monetizing from episode one? Right? Making it shorter again. Now, look, by the way, not everybody understands the word monetize, but for me, the people that are going to be interested in the book will understand the word monetize. So it's actually a very good filter, just that word alone. I didn't know what that meant when I started on my online journey. I didn't like the two lines. I think that's what I requested next. I haven't actually gone back and looked at this since last Friday. Oh, yeah. So my next request was, can you make the wave lines, right? These lines here into ones and zeros like the Matrix movie. So the reason this came up was George and I were talking about the Matrix, I think in the video last Friday. And I said, this is kind of like red pill, blue pill, where there's one way that you typically do podcasts, but this is like the completely different way that there's no going back once you take the pill. So in fact, like phenomenal. It just does an amazing job in doing this. I'm sure if there was a time, no, there isn't a time stamp on this, but this is all happening like in less than 5 minutes. So now it adds the ones and zeros. Now I said, nice. Now please remove the dashes either side of the tagline and stretch the tagline to fit better. Right? So if you go back and look at this is what I'm speaking about here. I just didn't like these lines. It looked a bit weird. So it would allow us to make the tagline better. It does a fantastic job. I was like, okay, there we go. Now it pops. I wasn't too sure whether to leave that brain on the mic or not. I said, you know what, I'll just leave it just in case it messes things up. And I said, I love it. Please now create Rethink Productivity because I was like, I need to actually up the quality of all the other covers now that are going to be on the NASDAQ billboard because this one's going to look way better than. So I just kept going off on a tangent and created a bunch of other book covers while I was at it. But that was just to show you the progression of how quickly this happened and how a book cover was designed from scratch since last Friday. So just to show you exactly how you can do something the same. And remember, just because you don't have a book that you might have already, just go to Amazon and just find a book or a couple of books that you really like and say, could you combine these two or three books? Just upload those images and ChatGPT will do the rest for you. Over to you,
And that
George.
would have taken like so much time. Like
Oh,
working
tell
with
me
graphic
about it.
art, every single change would be like 24-hour window
And a couple
to
of hundred
get back
dollars.
something and a
Couple of
couple
hundred
hundred
dollars.
bucks,
Oh,
you know.
ooh, that's ones and zeros. Oh, jeez, I'll have to close the whole company down to get that one figured out. You have no
Yeah.
idea. I didn't have an idea.
Yeah. The whole
And
idea of like doing this on Fiverr, that ain't $5. I promise you that. That'd be like 200, 300, 400, 1,000. Like it just stacks and stacks and stacks. Now, unlimited revisions. There is a limit to revisions if you push people far enough, and you become that problem child. But yeah, it's amazing. And I love that what you showed each step by step, because that's exactly what you need to do to get it right. Like just putting something in chat and being like, could you do this? And it does, and you're like, perfect from day one. I mean, it'll give you something that's really close, but you want to make it yours. That's authenticity,
yep,
as well. That's
100%,
how you can feel good about it.
100%. And then let me tell you my next step. And he wasn't overly enamored by it, but I went to my IT um, guy, Marius, um, who's now the book guy, just because I decided. Uh, now, so the reason I got him to get involved was I don't even know the login for Amazon, right? I certainly didn't know it. Like I just don't get involved in that stuff. I know how to log in to check sales, but I don't know how to like upload books, or I've never done anything like that because I've had publishing companies do it. So I'm just going back to traces. I'm not going to share my WhatsApp, but I'll walk you through in case I just share something I'm not meant to. But um, so this is Monday. I waited till Monday. So hi Marius. Hope you're well. Um, have you ever done a full Amazon cover design before, please? Because I have a Rethink podcasting design done and I'd like to set it up on pre-order for sale on Amazon. He's like, no, I haven't. But Amazon have very well described guidelines for creating book covers. I was like, okay, perfect. Can you just upload it and put it on pre-order? Poor Marius is like, okay, like ebook or paperback? And I said, in the meantime, could you please send me the existing cover, or where can I find it? So I hadn't even sent him the cover. Like this is where my brain is at. So then I send him the cover. He goes, okay, could you actually send me the source file, the PSD or the AI or the high res PDF? Most of what that just doesn't sound like English to me. So I just said, there is none. I just took a screenshot of what ChatGPT did for me, and he does that like whoa emoji. I think he thought I got a graphic designer to do it for me. He goes, so he showed me on WhatsApp how to send a graphic image so he would get a bit more resolution. You just click on document and then upload rather than just copying and pasting a screenshot. So I'm literally learning on the go. So I said, okay, when will this be? When will this be uploaded? He's like, just give me a couple of minutes. So he's just starting reading through the instructions of, by the way, which it's super easy. Just go to Amazon, click upload book. And then he just needed some information from me. So you have to remember, this guy knows nothing about the intention, the plan, the goal. I just need it uploaded on Amazon. And he'd never done it before. So he said, okay, I'm just Googling this here. I'm on it. But in the meantime, I did some research. It looks like we can only create, this is good to know, a pre-order book for ebooks on KDP, Amazon. For paperback, you're going to need to use a third-party distributor like Ingram Spark, for example. I was like, okay, that sounds complicated. I said, that'll work. Let's just start with Kindle. Once it's written, we'll follow up with paperback. How quickly can you get the pre-order live? Can we have it for sale tomorrow? Um, he didn't answer that question, I notice. So now he sends me back a kind of the same graphic that I sent to him. He said, look, I need some details. So guys, make a note of this. This is what you need, right? All we have so far is an image. He said you need a description. You need a primary marketplace, which means are you going to make most of your sales in .co.uk or .com or .canada? What categories, what keywords, and what release date? So this is 7 p.m. Tuesday, right? So a full 24 hours here have been lost in Marius going into shock, being asked to do something completely outside of the scope. I mean, by the way, he's the perfect example of someone who'll just read instructions and do it. So that's why, again, you can't say, yeah, well, it's easier for you, Paul. You've done it before. I actually haven't done it before. So I got back and said, okay, .co.uk as our primary. Categories, small business. entrepreneurship, and self-employment. So what I did there was I just looked up um, on Amazon podcasting books. And when you let me show you how you do this. Let me do a screen share. A double screen share. Share screen here again. Just let me know, by the way, in the Q&A, is this proving useful so far? Right, where we're literally walking you through every step of the way here. Yeah, great. Okay, so this is what I did to find out what these were. Again, keeping you in mind that you might have no idea what this is. So, for example, I'm on Amazon.com, and in the search, I type in podcasting books. Okay. So here's an example, podcasting made simple. Oh, I way prefer our cover, by the way. So I click on it, and when you scroll down on any book on any topic, whatever you're into, there's like a little secret thing here that most people are not aware of, right? It tells you what categories that they're in. I actually decided I don't want to compete directly with these podcasting books that like have thousands and thousands of sales, but I was interested to see. Okay, so I went and just did a check on some of them. So digital audio production, podcasts and webcasts, uh, web marketing. Now I'm actually going to take a screenshot of that because I actually like these, and I'm going to save that because I was so much in a hurry the last day I didn't actually. They're really good ones to be in. So, but that's how you find out, right? So if I go and look at rethink time management, click on that, you'll get the same thing, right? So it's going to be slightly different. So self-employment, time management and self-help ebooks, and time management in business. So what I ended up asking Marius to do was stop share here. I just said, okay, use the small business, entrepreneurship, and self-employment. Right, we started with those. I'll probably go, and you can go into Amazon and you can edit those later. I just wanted it live, right? That was the key thing for me for now. Okay. I gave it a description. So my description, I didn't put any effort into this. I just described it from the top of my head. So this is what I said. I said, have you ever considered setting up a podcast, but immediately you become overwhelmed? What will I speak about? What will I call it? Will anybody even want to listen? I've heard it takes years to build enough listeners before you can ever make a single dollar from it. It's time for you to rethink podcasting. This book is based on a real life case study where from day one, income was generated from the very first podcast. And rather than putting the pressure on you, the host, we will share with you how you can make your audience a key part of what it is that you do. Podcasting is one of the most amazing opportunities of a generation to find your voice, but let's do it in a way that doesn't have to make you one in a million to succeed. Instead, it gives you a step-by-step strategy that anybody can start with. That's all he needed, except for one last thing, was you need to give them the official release date. And I decided 15th of May, right? So the official release, so I was giving George 3 weeks to write the book. He didn't know that. Um, so then Marius kind of panicked a little bit, knowing that we've nothing written, and said, please remember, you have to upload the content before May the 11th. I was like, yeah, okay, perfect. I said, right, I want you to put this up at 99 cents so that we can put it on pre-order, and it's a complete no-brainer for our live audience on the podcast to buy it, right? Because if you put it on pre-order and it's less than $1, I mean, who's not going to buy it? You're not risking your mortgage on your home, right, to get it. So, and then he asked me more questions. I said, just stop asking, just submit, just press submit. I was just getting sick of all these questions. But it's funny because people go through this exercise like over months, right? All I had was a cover that ChatGPT created, right? And then, okay, he said, excellent, thank you, glad to help. It took, so he uploaded at 7:30. Oh, yeah, he did ask me one more question, which was Amazon asked this. Would you like to choose KDP Select Enrollment? So you can reach more readers, maximize your sales potential. KDP Select is a free 90-day program offered to Kindle ebooks. It allows you to run discounts and participate in promotional like uh, Kindle Unlimited, a 90-day program. And I think there was a free, maybe I misread it. I thought there was, yeah, oh no, it is a free 90-day pro. Oh yeah, so it was free. So I said, yeah, yeah. I said, take that, that's fine. So then he submitted it, and at 7:37 and at 9:31, so 2 hours later, it was live. It was live. We had a product for sale on the internet. That was, it says Tuesday. So the idea was Friday. We were live and for sale on Tuesday. And now I want to share this with you guys because this is super exciting. Um, so if we go over here,
We're already rich, Paul. We've already made $1 million
of
off of it. Is
course,
that the exciting
of
part?
course, right?
We
So
could retire now.
here it is on I've shared it on I haven't shared it on Riverside. I'm getting too excited. I'm going to be more excited about this $20 that we make than 20 grand that you make. It's just because it's so easy for people to do this. Okay, so now you're looking at George. So here it is on Amazon.com. I'm going to give you the links in a moment. Right? There's the exact description that I just gave it. There's the price, 99 cent. Okay, it hasn't shown up yet in categories, which it wouldn't because we haven't made enough sales. But we'll walk you through this as we do it together over the next coming days. And let's go to amazon.co.uk and rethink podcasting. Okay, so here it is on pre-order, right? It says I've purchased it, which is correct. I did purchase it. It's 89 cent or 99 cent in euros. Okay. Oh, I don't believe it. Georgia, I literally didn't notice. But look, we're in the top 10 of two categories already. Oh my God.
Nice.
That's that is absolutely mental. So we might have been higher. I don't even know actually because I wasn't checking. I just assumed we weren't going to be ranking yet.
That's smart too, because looking at the categories you picked, Paul, this is where our audience is. So that other guy, if you notice I looked at his bestseller rank before you switch the screen. It's like bestseller rank is like 52,000, and they had something like several thousand reviews. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to
We're
compete
not
with
competing
that,
with that
right?
guy.
Forget it. If they're in 52,000, but they picked the same category everyone else picked. So it's really smart to pick like, well, who is the avatar we're trying to reach? Who's the person that actually can really use this book? You picked entrepreneurship and everything else. Everyone else would have been like, pick podcasting, because it's a book on
Look,
podcasting.
I'm
But
not going
no,
to give
that's the better
myself
way to
credit
do
for
it.
being
You
overly
can
smart
dominate those
there, but
categories.
it certainly worked out. So, guys, okay, this is so cool. I've never ever done this live kind of as it's happening, but I did not expect that. Um, 'Cause I don't think we'll check exactly how many sales we have in a moment, but let me go in and show you why this is important, right? So what you do now is you scroll down, right? Here it is in number 8. So we're beside 500 social media marketing tips. Ah, we're beside, I know this guy, Igor. Oh, I have to take a screenshot of this.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you have to send
He's
that to
been
Igor. That's so
telling me all
funny.
week
We're
about
actually we're outperforming Igor. He did, and
ah,
it's funny. He just asked me the other day. He said, "Hey, could you buy a copy of my book? I'm trying
that's
to
hilarious. I bought his book too,
get
but
it
I'd never
on
ask
Amazon
anyone to do the
and
same.
leave a
Yeah. Oh my
review
God, we're
because we
outranking
need
him. That is
reviews."
just so
Like
awesome.
Igor's an amazing guy too. For anyone who knows Igor, he's super fun, super awesome. That's hilarious.
I have a feeling
Cool.
we are number one in hot new releases.
Really? Oh my gosh, you gotta take a screenshot of that.
Like I'm taking so many screenshots here. I just cannot believe what's happening in real time. I'm gonna just put these in here.
And did you send an email out to your list, Paul, about this?
We did, and I'm going to show you though how many I it was very it was only people that registered, so it wasn't to our list. So it was only people that are registered to show up today. And I want to show you how many sales created this. People will get a shock, right? It was, and it wasn't anybody watching right now because there's a time deficit. So let me share this with you. Here we go. 12 units. 12 units. So this is not money generated today. This was what was generated from we just made. And I knew we wouldn't generate a lot of sales because I hadn't talked about the book. There was no big deal about it, but I just wanted to make sure it was working for people. One of those is me. I'd say one of those is you, is George. So there was 10 sales. Gener
Well, I didn't
Oh,
buy
you
it
didn't buy,
yet.
you tight arse. Well, I'm going to give you the link in a minute.
Hey, could you loan me the money, Paul? Can you
Yeah,
send
I
me a
can't.
buck?
I can't. I can't. I know a guy that writes books on this. So this is just I am hoping that you guys are just bursting in confidence here in just looking what's happened, right? To get to number one in any category in that short a space of time. And this is the first time I've done it without a book written. So I'm just saving these screenshots here at the same time. Because I haven't even asked you the favor of you guys yet. And this is what I was going to ask you is this is how we're going to make how we're going to make income live on our session today is, and can you just let me know, can you guys see this on, are you looking at a PowerPoint slide now, George?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can see it.
So
It's not on Riverside though, by the way.
it's not on
I think
Riverside. Okay.
we
Let
got
me
the
pause
Riverside
this.
share.
And I'm going to drop these into the chat. So what we would love to ask you, you do not have to. This is only if you feel compelled to, oh my God, yeah, I want to be part of this. This is awesome. Because remember, you are the guest. You are the guest that we are talking about on these shows. Right? You're the ones that's going to be interacting with us. So that's how you can get it on .co.uk or on pre-order on .com on Amazon. Okay, right now. So I just need to set it up for
For
Riverside.
everybody who didn't know, you mentioned KDP Select or something earlier.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows what that means. What KDP is, they want you to have exclusivity on the Amazon platform for your book title for 90 days, for example. That means if you get really overexcited and overzealous, you can put it up on Nook, and there's a lot of different places you can put these things, but you don't want to, piss off the Amazon gods with your first book launch if you decide to choose KDP Select and then you start putting it out everywhere. I think you can still put it on your own website, meaning like you can promote it or whatever else. But as far as selling it, they just want you to pretty much sell it on Amazon as your primary exclusive, just as a heads up.
Yeah. So I think
Serbia.
.com or .co.uk. So let me, I just want to show something here. I haven't ever done this before either. So I'm going to go in right now to see, does this update in real time enough that we can all see
Thanks,
this?
Craig.
Thank you, by the way.
Thanks, everybody. This is
Thank you
cool.
all of you buying because
Yeah.
you are literally proving the point in real time. And by the way, any of you thinking, but you've an audience, you've an about, we're going to address all of those things. That's the entire point of what we're doing here is that we'll go through all of the various challenges that people will see. Okay, cool. So all titles, no, I just want pre-orders. Right, start date 21st. Yes, they are coming in. So I think you saw,
Did you share on Riverside? I didn't look up to see the other monitor if you did or not.
you should be able to see the
I'm
slide
I'm
on
not seeing your screen
Riverside.
on Riverside. It's
I
not showing
haven't
up
put the
yet.
links in on Riverside, so let me see. Can I do that in the chat? Oh yeah, but nobody will be in the chat on Riverside, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
Right.
Yeah,
No, no, just need to have the
the
screenshot so they know where it's
screenshot
at. Well,
should.
in Riverside, if you're listening to this afterwards, the link will be in the
Yeah, yeah.
description.
Good point. Good point. Oh, Tony O'Donovan is here. Hey, Tony. Um. So let me just and like the beauty of Kindle, of course, is you can only buy one at a time. So there's no buying bulk here. So I want to, because I showed you this again, now I want to share with you this. So let me do a stop share. I think everybody probably has that at this point. Um, Because I think you'd be interested, right? We're just speaking to 100 people right now. Like literally, if you look, it's just 102. So two of them are me and George. Neither of us have a team on. So let me guess, and I want you to tell me something before I tell you. 100 people, loyal fans of me and Rethink. Many have been with me for a decade or more. What percentage of people do you think would jump on and buy a $1 book when you ask them out of 100? Just give an educated guess. Given I have an audience that people know well, they trust me, I'm asking them to spend $1, they're going to be part of this journey. This is all part of it. Sia says 100%. Bethany says 25. Beatrice 70. Emma 99. Rebecca 50. Biliana at least 50. 82 says Laura, very specific. Claire 80. Wade 20. Okay, Roxanne 20. Now I'm going to ask, this is 93, 83, 80, 30. This is perfect for Slido, George. This is why we can share with everybody in our future ones the live what the results are. Can I ask only Irish people to give your guess? Because I know there's a reason I'm asking only Irish people on the call. Because we're going to be that little bit more skeptical. We're going to, fuck, there's no way there's going to be 50% buying. I know what people are like, right, Nicola?
It comes with a pint,
Here we go.
right?
20, right? Now we're talking. Now my Irish homies know, right? It's never as to be fair, my Irish people here are going to be the buyers, but they'll know in general in a crowd, right? Bruce is 15. What if you're Irish American? Doesn't count. You're naturally way more exaggeratory, hyped up about the whole thing. You're gonna think way higher. Victoria says 30%, but you live in Spain. You're an exile, Toria, so you're going to be naturally more. Okay, so let me go in and check. All right, because it was 12, right? It was 12. Let me do a screen share. This is so cool. I can do it live. Share. And look, here's the good news, by the way. No need to be guilty if you didn't buy. No need to be guilty if you're a cheapskate. No need to be guilty if you don't want to support us on our journey here and us doing all of this for free for you and giving up our time. No need to feel guilty because nobody's names are going to be shared here, right? Amazon doesn't do that. It's actually one of the downsides. It doesn't give you the email addresses of your buyers. So let me also share this on Riverside. This is so cool that we can do this in real time. Because I'm about to congratulate every single person on this call, and I'll tell you why. You have officially allowed us to monetize from episode one. We have just generated 29 minus 12. Maths is never my strength. 17 sales of the book and pre-order. Now, I know some of you are saying you can't book for whatever reason. Amazon doesn't. Yeah, that's understandable. But it's going to be, I would have guessed, George, I would have guessed 25% would have been my guess. I know what you would have thought. Again, it's only $1. This is what people get shocked to go, why the hell won't everybody? Not everybody will buy. It's just a thing. And it's okay. You have to become comfortable with knowing that just not people just don't buy all the time in the beginning, right? It could be that, right, they're driving right now, they're at work right now, they don't have their credit card set up with Amazon right now, they're going to do it tonight, they're going to check it tomorrow. You don't get upset or emotional about those that don't. You get excited about those that do, and you thank them and you're grateful, because the more energy you put into gratitude, I found, the higher the altitude becomes. Everybody just starts to grow together. Everybody gets excited together. Sorry, George. I'm just so excited. I've never been as excited about $29 in my life.
It's not even $29, right? Because Amazon takes its chunk. Amazon takes 70% of that
Yeah,
money.
well, let's not get into that right now. Let's just enjoy our moment.
I don't want to deflate your balloon or anything, but yeah. Um, You know what's funny, Paul? I've got I think well over 100 books up on Amazon because at one point in time I bought into the whole like I'm gonna get rich on Amazon. So I started writing books all the time like crazy. I started outsourcing books on Fiverr and I started going to Freelancer and getting all that stuff done. The best-selling book ever wrote, it's a list. It's just literally a list of 101 secret hiding places. Just a list and 99 cents, and it just sells.
Can you,
It just was
George, can
selling
you
every
take
day.
over for me for just one moment? I need to take a call.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure, no problem. Uh, so it doesn't even have to be something that's like super easy. Oh, by the way, Paul, can you take the screen share down on Riverside if you can still hear me? Um, It does not be crazy. I mean, literally, I just asked. This was pre-ChatGPT. This was over 10 years ago. I looked on what people are looking for in general, and this is for my survival kind of part of the business. I said, okay, I'm gonna figure out what they're looking for. Secret hiding places, 101 secret hiding places, and you can probably look it up. And the book is still there on Amazon. I'm sure it is. And I put a bunch of recipe books up there. I even had a pen name for some of the books. Anne Sullivan. It's the only time I've ever said that publicly. And Sullivan is our pen name for anything that might be a little more female oriented, just because it makes more sense, than listening to what's George got to say about that stuff. People are not going to believe me, especially if they see my name connected to a bunch of different niches and different stuff like that. They're like, this guy is just a serial book writer. So it doesn't have to be super in depth. It was just a list. That's how it started out. And then, of course, after maybe a couple of years of this thing selling, we're like, maybe we should go back and update it and make it a little more robust. And we did. We made, a little bit more to it. But that's all it was. When Paul said that we can monetize from day one, there's actually three different ways to monetize. We discussed this a little bit earlier. But let me kind of explain this. What we just did, or what he just did primarily, was he put this thing up, launched it for pre-order on the actual live. We got people go buy it. Okay, that was proving that this works. Okay, there's other ways you can do that. So the first one is going to be to start building an email list. With an email list, you don't have to keep going back to Amazon or going back to Facebook, for example, and like advertising and keep asking for permission to use or to tap into that audience. You actually own the audience. You own the relationship, right, itself. So what I tell people to do is always have a really cool, which says out what archetype you are on his podcast. A lot of times it could be, again, it's 101 if you're in the travel space. Hey, if you haven't yet got my 101 secret hiding places so that people don't relieve you of your preparedness items, make sure you go to 101secrethidingplaces.com and get that. It's free, or you can go to Amazon and buy it right now. It's $10 on Amazon. Actually, it's only 99 cents on Amazon, but then you can say whatever it is on Amazon, but you can go here and get it for free if you just opt in. You're building your email list and immediately send them over to, the free version of Amazon Kindle so they can get it for free, or you just give them the PDF download. And now you've got the ability to monetize other things. Because if they want, for example, if someone wants to know what the hiding places are, what else could you sell them that they probably are interested in? Well, I already know that they're in a preparedness, survival preparedness, prepping, that type of thing. They probably want, there's a lot of really cool things that are like fake. Have you ever seen those speakers? They're not really speakers. You can take the front off and there's a big hole in it, or books. So you open up a book and it's hollow. Like there's all kinds of cool things like that you can literally sell, all day long. I've got all kinds of things on my shelf that no one can see in the thing, but you could buy all these little things and you can actually just hold them up and show them. Like, let me show another example. I told this to Paul the other day. So you probably see me like messing around with my coffee. Check this out. This is a single cup coffee maker that doesn't put microplastics in your coffee every morning. So my girlfriend got this for me, and it's super cool. I actually get 2 full cups of coffee out of this. It's not even full. I only feel like halfway, but I just swish it around. It makes a killer cup of coffee, and it doesn't have that cigarette butt taste that some coffee makes in the thing. It's super clean. I clean it all the time. And it's really easy. And first thing Paul said, well, I know for a fact one thing, I'm going to go get one of those things tomorrow. And this was just in us talking the other day when I showed this to him. But that's an example of like live selling. You're like, hey, what is that thing? It can be totally natural. It's not like you have to over the top do a QVC, style show just to get something sold. So getting back to what I was saying earlier, you can actually monetize by collecting the email, which is what I'd recommend because it's a super low friction ask. You can ask, hey, if you haven't got the podcast, say we're doing a podcast on how to do podcasting or just our normal, thing. If you thought about actually growing your audience and getting into podcasting, go to Amazon right now and type in Rethink Podcasting. Make sure you get a copy of the book. It's 99 cents. At some point in the near future, without warning, we'll probably raise that to where it should be, which is probably closer to $10. But you can get the paperback. You can also get the digital version of it. Make sure you do that right now. We'll drop a link in the chat. So you can say something like that is like, that's just a sound bite on your podcast. So it's a super low friction, very relevant to the audience ask. And what's funny is each of these podcasts that you do, you literally have this concept of and it's a salesperson out there that's reaching out to somebody trying to sell something of yours or get them on an email list. And when you put 50 episodes, 100 episodes, 1,000 episodes. People are watching those, they're binge watching them. And of course, what they're going to do, they're going to do the call to action. They're going to click the link in the comments. So you want to make sure the link in the comments is something that you own. I would never put like a direct Amazon link in the comments because sometimes they change the link structure. I would always have a redirect. So it'd be something like rethinkpodcasting.com/free book or something like that. Or get the book, get hyphen the book or something like that. That way you control that. So you can always change, the space there. So that's one. And I learned this from, we did 60 episode podcast maybe 15 years ago in the essential oil business. I don't know if I told this story on the last interview we did, but so I was working with a guy who was building his essential oil business. And I said, hey, let's do a podcast on 60 different essential oils, all the research studies. Like he just went to pubmed.gov and pulled the research studies. Again, pre-chat GPT or any summarization or anything like that. And I said, I just want you to read the stuff that's on this particular thing. These podcasts are going to be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever they're, 15 minutes. So he would read that and maybe give a little tidbit or recipe or something like that. And what was funny is we stopped after 60 because that's all the different oils that there were. So we said, let's just put that out there. We stopped. 10 years later, we were still getting opt-ins for free essential oils book we had every single week. And I kept looking at my email list because it was inside of Entreport, and I saw that it just kept on growing. I'm like, who are these people? And I went back to look at the attribution. I'm saying free EO book or free, I forgot what the URL was, but free essential oils book or something like that. What is going on? Are these bots? What is this? Of course, I saw a few Russian characters. I'm like, that's definitely not like legit. Probably not. Not the Russians are not legit. I'm just saying that's where we had all the hacking spam at one point in time. Igor is, in that category, good friend of mine. But that was coming in every single time. I'm like, we've been doing this all wrong. Oh my gosh. We've been trying to promote things that are one-off promotions, over time. What we should have been doing is we should have taken every summit interview we've ever done, turned it to a podcast, had a call to action for people to go get the actual transcript of that audio along with the entire event, put that up online, and build our list on complete autopilot. I didn't pay a single dollar for that opt-in. It came in because someone listened to the podcast. And I would have thought that this podcast, like, gets pushed down, like in the reviews, like, oh, no one's going to watch that. People were watching it 10 years later. They were finding it 10 years later. So the idea that this will just, it creates that sales army for you to put people on your email list. Like that's just, you're going to make money with it. And big doesn't mean 100,000 people. Big means 300 people. If they're the ideal avatar and they're connected to what you're doing, you help them out. Like they're just going to want to help you. They're going to want to buy whatever you suggest, with that. And you can get email service like super cheap. Like I use Aweber. I've had an account with Aweber for a really, really long time. I think it's like $20 or something. You can also go with Go High Level. Is another example. A lot of people have Go High Level accounts. And that works out really well as well. So it doesn't take much. So that you've got, those are two ways. The other way that, the third way is going to be sponsorships. So Paul mentioned a little bit earlier that you can get sponsors once you get a certain number of viewers, because attention is the new currency. Well, I shouldn't say it's not the new currency. It's been the currency for a little while, just people haven't realized it. Gary Vee said that for a number of years now. So attention is the way that you're going to be making money over time. And that earlier story I told you, it's like, hey, that person was taking these selfies and doing all this, social media content stuff, just felt weird to me. That's them getting attention, because what I find myself doing is watching that stuff. I'm like, because I recognize the person, I'm like, huh, what are they doing here? And I'd say half the time I'll click on the comments to see what they're posting in there, because the little text that they put over top of their video, it's like, oh yeah, I'd like to know what they're doing. Has things changed? Are they doing something a little different to give me a little epiphany or an aha moment? So I'll do that. So they're catching my attention. It works. It works, no brainer. But if you get enough people, like we have some summits that we're doing right now, like the average summit that my company does, because we really dialed this process in, is about 10,000 or more people. And that's a not normal. Most people who do a virtual event, they're lucky to crack a few hundred people. And actually, that's a pretty good event for most people. Getting 200 people on a Zoom, or even just to opt into your list, you could still make, six figures or more with a few hundred people on a virtual event. We just like to go like to the next level with it. So when we have those kind of numbers, we have a track record for them. It's easier for us to go to big companies and say, hey, look, we're going to put your brand in front of an audience of 10,000 plus people. But you have to put that in perspective. Like, what is 10,000 people? It's digital. Like, who knows what that means? 10,000 person email list, you can build that. I mean, anyone can build a 10,000 person email list. It doesn't take that much time, right? But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying 10,000 registered attendees. And people register from finding us through ads, through affiliate stuff, all kinds of different things. But we're able to get, 3,000 to 10,000 to 25,000. Our highest sponsorship level is $50,000. And several of our summits that we've done, I mean, we've had sponsors of up to $200,000 in sponsorship funds that have come in from these summits, and we've had like 20,000 people. Because when you got that kind of money that's coming in from sponsors, you don't have to have from day one that number of opt-ins. Because the way that I look at this, for the biohacking niche, for example, we did a summit 4 years ago in the biohacking space, and we generated $190,000. I think it was. It was nearly $200,000 after we had one person that uh, didn't make their payment or something like that. But at the very end, it was like 190 people on a summit, no problem. We ended up spending, I think it was $5 per opt, for that. But what was interesting is out of percentage of those opt-ins, we actually made some of that money back, and then we would spend it again. So it wasn't something like we just threw money into Zuckerberg's pocket and hoped that we're going to make some money. And we actually were recycling it. We created a flywheel as part of the process. So the reason why I'm sharing that with you is this is a step-by-step process. You start out with something very small, 0 sales. An ebook that you just launched in pre-order, 12 sales. And then it starts growing because you've got proof, you've got podcasts, you have belief yourself. And then over time, you can end up monetizing it. And Paul mentioned earlier that the biggest podcasters, whether it's the Diary of a CEO or the Joe Rogan experience, I think that's what it calls. Like all of these people started this thing out as a hobby. They said like, F it, I have nothing better to do. I'm just going to do a podcast. I'm going to interview my friends, or I'm just going to talk about something, and I've had multiple people tell me like 15 or 20 years ago, podcasting before. You ever thought about doing a YouTube channel? I'm like, I don't know. I never did that. I did a little bit of it back then, Bible and preparedness podcast. And then I just kind of stopped after that because I got busy. I was the same person. I was like, oh, is anyone listening to this? Even though I had a list of, 20,000 plus people at that point in time that I built over time from the magazine sales. But there's a lot that you can do with podcasting. It doesn't preclude you from really participating. So let me go to the chat real quick. Sorry, I know that some of you have been chatting to us and I haven't like been able to see it because I've been not looking at the screen. I'm just going to pull up the ones. So Sia says it's a good sales lesson. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could sell anything. Just it works. Speak more on serial book writing. Okay. Let me just scroll up for a second, Sia, and see how many people are above you. That's just what's showing on my screen. I've got this touch screen computer and there's so many comments in the chat, it doesn't scroll. So serial book writing. Here's an idea for you guys. Remember, I mentioned earlier on in the conversation about the pain, fears, frustrations that your avatar has. Like we want to, what's in the dead of night? What are they going to question themselves? What's going to keep them up at night? What are they going to ask God without any reservations or with any feeling that God's going to put them down? Right? Those questions, you can turn each of those in a book. So let me frame that for you. I think this is going to be super powerful. So if you're doing something right now, stop just for a second. This has made more people that I've worked with more money than anything at all. And this is the most powerful key to copywriting that you probably ever have. So first is how we go through the copywriting process. The first thing is I make a list of like 1 to 3 word phrases and roughly about 40 of them. Don't stop until you get at least 40 of them. Pains, fears, frustrations, hopes, dreams, and desires. Those 6 things in that order. Pains, fears, frustrations, hopes, dreams, and desires. Whatever that is for whatever the audiences you're in. Then I say, what's the question that person would ask in the dead of night that they would never get caught asking? Here's a good example of that. We did a mom summit. We did a number of different mom summits for moms in general. And we, what are they afraid of? Well, they're afraid of this, and kid doesn't eat well, blah, blah, blah. And then we started talking. It's like, what are they really afraid of? Well, moms are really afraid of not screwing up their kids. I think we said something like not effing up your kids. I'm like, yes, that's where we want to go. That's what we want in their head. Like that's what they're really afraid of. They don't want to screw up their kids. They still want to have a relationship with the kids. They don't want their kids to hate them in the future. They're desperate to not have that happen. So you call that out. So the question would be like, how do I ensure that my kid doesn't hate me when they're older? Or that I don't screw, how do I make sure that I don't screw up my kids? Because I'm kind of a screw up myself. Most parents feel that, you know. So what you do is you take that question and you flip it into a statement. How to ensure you don't screw up your kids, even if you're a screw up yourself. Hopefully people are getting that. Okay, this is really, really important because if you could take that, that's a book title. Every single one of those summit interviews that we did is a book title. So to answer your question, I think I was Sia that things already started, it's moving. Um, the that's one of the things you can do to start doing serial book titles. Like, what are the pains, fears, frustrations? They don't have to be long books. The average person will not read past page 30 in a physical book. This is not by me. This is from Reed, that was a publisher of Hay House. You know, he told me this in person. He's like, yeah, most people don't read past page 30 of their book. They'll put it down, they get distracted, social media pings, whatever that happens, you know, and they'll read a book one day over a cup of coffee. They never, you know, first pages is really good. No one ever finishes their book. So that's just one way of doing it. So that's what I'm saying. That list, that 101 secret hiding places, you can read that in about 20 minutes, you know, because you're skimming it, you know. But that was a very valuable book for people because all they're looking for is one insight that they can use. So what's one insight that you can give people? It doesn't have to be the most definitive guide on anything in the world. Like, I'm going to teach you how to be the best mom or the best dad, you know, ever. You know, you're going to be the mom that everyone envies on the block, right? Again, that's something that was a pain, a fear, or a frustration, or the desire that people had. They wanted to be the mom that everyone envied, you know, even though that's not necessarily a positive emotion. It's still, that's what they wanted. But that could be another book topic. How to become the mom that everyone envies on your block, you know, something like that. Let's see. I lost where I was this. Let's see. Podcast company's website. What's funny, Craig, is we don't have a website. I literally just reached out to some friends of mine and it's been like, hey, you know, I've got people that are asking me to help them with their podcasts. Would you be okay with that? And yeah, yeah. They're like, oh yeah. Everyone said, yeah. I think one person said, I'm interested, but not right now. I'm like super busy. I got a couple projects. And I only talked to like 5 or 6 people. You know, and that was enough. I said, okay, let me prove this model with only 5 or 6 people. And to the question that you're asking, Craig, Paul and I discussed this the other day. To said there's going to be a lot of people who might want to use this as a business because there's no way that I'm going to do a cattle call and send an email out and be like, hey, I'm going to do everyone's podcast. Like, it's labor intensive, but you can easily make $10,000 a month or more yourself spending 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week working with people to help them launch their podcasts. People that are in your business space, whether they're, you know, national, international, or they're local, doesn't really matter. I mean, look, think about doing a local podcast in your area, like uncovering the cool places to eat, fun stuff to do. Like, people are looking for that stuff all the time. You can interview business owners, you can go do fun things, special invites and passes to behind the scenes. You become like a who's who of the space, and you don't have to have a big following to make that happen. So that is it's an easy way of making it work. And you don't, I would definitely never charge to do someone's for what we do, and we'll probably explain this a little bit more like how we do it. This is part of the rethink concept, which we'll expose in the book. But you can easily charge 1,500 to 2,500 bucks a month to do this stuff. And your actual hard costs on it per podcast episode that you're working on, if you follow the process I'm going to lay out for you, is probably less than $300 to $500 per month per podcast. Of course, the cost goes down the more of these you do. But most people, if you're going to do this as a service, which we'll show you how to do, you probably don't want to have more than 5 or 6 people that you're working with, just because you want to be able to stay on point. And if you're trying to build a lifestyle business, like, you don't want to run yourself into the ground. You can even hire a team once you get to the point of that, and they're doing the work for you, and you're sitting back, and now you're the business owner. You're no longer the entrepreneur, you know, and you're running that. Now that's how you do it at scale. That's how you start moving that. So, hey, Paul, I don't know if you've been listening, but we've been just kind of going through some of the questions. Craig was asking about what's the podcast company's website and some other stuff. So we talked about that, and CEO was asking some questions. And how do I register my podcast name? Do I trademark this? That's a good question too. You just have to be in interstate commerce for a trademark. If in the United States, I'm not sure how it works in the UK, but you have to show that there's actually money being spent on your podcast. So the easiest way to do that, like with what Paul just did, which we could prove live on air, is you're selling a book. Well, guess what? There's inherent copyright rules. If you're selling a book and people are giving you money for it across state lines, you have not just copyright, baseline copyright, poor man's copyright, but you also have some trademark. See the TM versus the R. The R you have to pay for because that shows like in the United States it's registered trademark. You've registered with I don't know whatever it is the USPTO Patent and Trademark Office, but you could put a TM after the name of your podcast, a TM after the name of your whatever you're doing, and that basically says, and again, the U.S. trademark. You're claiming that you have trademark rights, that no one else is supposed to be using that. But even if you have a registered trademark, it's what you're willing to spend money on to defend, because you have to. I get ripped off all the time. Anyone else has been ripped off, like put a one in the chat. It has been in business, right? You have to be willing to defend it and put your money where your mouth is. So yeah, there's got some ones coming in. It will make people who are thinking about ripping you off think secondarily, like, oh, this person actually might have some money to spend to fight me in court, and I might have to pay them if they see it because they spent some money to register the trademark. So they'll think twice about doing it. But truthfully, it's not absolutely necessary. It's worth it, but it's not absolutely necessary, especially when you're going in the beginning. And there's still an echo in the background audio. I'm not sure, Beatrice, what you're hearing there. Sorry. Hearing a small echo. Oh, hang on. No, it should be coming from me. I'm not sure where that's coming. It might be coming from somebody else. It might be unmuted on the chat. I don't know. Let's see. Karai? I'm not sure. Hopefully I don't want to butcher that. It said is asking for the order link again.
Yeah, let me do the share. I'll share that again now.
Yeah. She said she only heard pain. I'm not sure what that means. Pain, fear, frustration, hopes, dreams, and desires. I'm not sure if those were the 6 things we talked through for copywriting, for coming up with book titles. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'd love to hear any additional questions you guys have as we're going through this. I want this to be more of a two-way conversation. It's not even something that's like one way. Like we're not up here to pontificate on how great you can be and you can do this. It's like, yes, you can do this, but I mean, we're trying to show this to you right now. Like we're doing it right now live.
Hang on one
And
second.
you don't have to have everything figured out.
We'll have to figure out how to swing our cameras so people see what actually goes on in real life. I have my 9-year-old climbing the library shelf here to my right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jess, you want to appear? Oh, she's gone. So apologies for jumping out. I had to yeah. Actually, George, before you write the dedication, please give me a shout about that because I want to that call has a meaning for me. Just one thing, couple of things on the updates. Thank you again for everybody who's purchased the pre-order. Again, it's only $1 at the moment. We are at 34 as of right now. But what everybody could do, please, and this doesn't cost any money, right? Because I'm very aware, some people, for whatever reason, can't spend at this moment in time. Please, could you go to my YouTube channel, Rethink and Grow Rich, because this is where we are going to host all of the recordings of these live sessions, because there's going to be some of them where you just can't attend live, for example. I've been very quiet in my YouTube channel. As you'll see, like the last time I uploaded a video was the one with George last week, and then it was about a year before that I posted. So one of the things I want to share with you, and that George and I would share with you over the coming weeks, is how much our subscriber base grows by doing these podcasts live. Right, we're not depending in any way now on the subscriber base, but it'll be interesting for you guys to see that at the same time. So as of today, I took a screenshot of it, and again, always take proof guys, when you're doing this stuff, it's brilliant to have later. It says 3.52K subscribers, so just 3,500 subscribers. So that's what we're starting from on day one. We haven't uploaded any of the previous podcast episodes that we've done so far because we decided to do them live now. But you'll get notified if you're subscribed. You'll get notified as soon as they go up there, right? So you'll get a chance to go and watch those and draw some inspiration from those as well yourself. Um, Okay, let me just, okay, see, I just said okay, perfect. So people are getting that link and you're subscribing now. Fantastic. I will update the banners and the logos and all that stuff of it in due course, and we'll talk about that well, I mean, we can do episodes on YouTube, we can do episodes on how to grow subscriptions, we can do episodes on trademarks. I mean, it won't be the most riveting, but I can tell you, I can tell you some stories about that because you got to be careful with that stuff. You might just think you'll never need it, but then
Well, you might be the one that gets the letter.
exactly,
That's the thing.
exactly.
Instead of the one that you got to send the letter, you might be the one that gets the letter. I've had that problem before. And, sometimes people like to sue because they think it's an easy paycheck, or someone's on retainer, an attorney's on retainer, and they have to kind of earn their retainer. So they send stuff out I mean, you're like, how is this even confusingly similar, what we're doing? It's not. But most people, they curl up into a ball. As soon as they get a letter from an attorney, they curl up into a ball. I'm the kind of guy that puts on the gloves and be like, let's do it. Let's go. Probably more often than I should. But the whole idea is like, I don't like to see people being intimidated. And I definitely don't like to be intimidated by someone, in general that doesn't have a claim. If they have a claim, yeah, no problem. I get it. But I've never had to deal with someone who actually had a legitimate claim. Not yet, luckily. Speaking of which, Paul, I'm wearing the shirt, Unbreakable. This is the second thing we're going to prove. I don't think I told you about this. So my Unbreakable podcast, I started doing interviews for that last fall in general. So I've got about 29, 28 episodes in the can, and I'm going to launch that live. So this whole idea of like I'm starting from zero podcast. And of course, to make it real for myself, I had to make a t-shirt. So I literally went to like the t-shirt place online, and I'm like, oh man, I got to order this. They said 10 days. I'm like, shit, 10 days before I get a t-shirt? I'm going to be stuck in limbo for 10 days. But I got two t-shirts because I don't know if they're going to come out to be crap or not. Because you never know with these things. But that's how I made it real for myself. Anything I do that's going to be like a legitimate brand or something, I'll go make myself a t-shirt for it. So instead of wearing someone else's t-shirt, I'm going to wear my own. So that's another little tip. And also it looks professional, right? I'm walking around, people say, hey, is that your podcast? I'm like, it is. It's like, it's not launched yet, but it is. It will be, right? So I had people ask me that at the restaurant the other day. I felt so good about saying, yes, it's my podcast.
Nice. Well, you know what? We promised people that we'd be done at 3, so I want to kind of stick to that plan. Guys, I want to say a huge thank you to you all. We really, really appreciate it. We're over 35 sales on the pre-order. That will be, I would think, enough for us to be #1 bestseller in even more ranks. And again, by the time we share the next steps next week, what I've just popped into the Zoom chat for everybody is this is the link to register for our weekly live podcast, right? So the beauty of this now is because we've proven it out, it's working. Once you register for this, you'll be auto-registered for these upcoming sessions. They're going to be at the same time for now. I think the beauty of this is because there's 2 of us in the event that one of us has an emergency, which I kind of did actually there for 15 minutes. We could probably go ahead anyway. So I know there's no perfect time, but it seems great. I'm delighted we've had 100 people here, and thank you, by the way. You've all stayed all the way through. So again, we're learning with you. We're trying to prove this idea as we go. Please bring a guest if you've got somebody who's interested in podcasting or anything related to what we do at Rethink. We're not going to be having slideshows and slide decks and upsells and that type of stuff, right? It's um much more, I'd say, simpler and more conversational type episodes that we'll be having with you guys. So can I just confirm, guys, can you see that link in the chat to register? I will put it on a PowerPoint as well so that people will this is to register to come to the lives, right? So this is different to subscribing to the YouTube channel, right? This is actually to make sure you get invited to all of our Zooms. So I'm going to just put it on the chat as well. So weekly live, I'll call it.
Hey, Paul, I got a question. Because I'm always like down to challenge some people. So we laid out a number of things today. First thing is we laid out the how to create a cover. I
Nice.
went through some of the copy things that we use to create books, book titles, podcast titles, like all of that. You can use all that for podcast episodes. I want to challenge everyone that wants to participate with us to create a book cover. Create a podcast cover. Podcast covers are, I think, 1200 pixels by 1200. They're just square, right? So if you don't have a book at all, like create a podcast cover because that's the cover art. It's the same type of, scenario. People judge a book by its cover. They also judge a podcast by its cover. At least I do, before I decide to waste my time on it. The Do that and bring it. Whether we're bringing it here next week and maybe not, we'll be able to show it. But I think in the actual, if we're going to set up some sort of a community, or something to that effect, I'd love to be able to show some social proof of who's been able to do it. Get into action. Maybe even record your first podcast episode. That would be awesome, right? And maybe even do it like launch your book and pre-order. Even if you have four sales, all family members with the same last name, doesn't matter. Like get something up, get it started, and then bring that. I think that'd be so much fun, to see people doing it.
Yeah, and I like that. And one thing to share with everybody is we don't even have the podcast, our own podcast graphic yet. We don't have it live on Spotify or any of the networks yet, right? So we're literally showing you, right, all of the things that you think you might need to get going. Um, we're hoping to kind of bash through those one by one, every single objection, and show no, it doesn't have to be that way. So and like we've shown, we're monetizing from day one. Um, with something that didn't exist this time last week. We're going to be number one bestseller in multiple categories now that we've based on the results we got from the first 12 for sure. Now that we're nearly at 40, we're going to smash through those rankings this week. Which is amazing. It means by the time we're in New York, we are officially going to be a bestseller with the book that's yet to be written. But yeah, we'll show you us creating the graphics ourselves. We'll show you our thought process in doing it. I think George, what'd be amazing is also we can show them like how we look to get approval on the various podcasting networks and what that all looks like. But this isn't going to be just about podcasts, right? It is at the moment because that's the perfect time in terms of what we're doing right now and books. We will certainly change and move the topic around in due course to keep this exciting, not just for you guys, but also for ourselves, which is important. I want to be inspired showing up to this every week. And you guys being here has been a huge part of that today. So thank you, George, and thank you everybody at home for being a part of this. Um, Please, as you come up with questions and ideas, pop them in the chat here, and we'll go back through the Zoom chat later and capture those.
There's questions that have come up related to the timing of this, Paul. It might be worthwhile. Deanne's asking if 8 o'clock in the morning to join us with this process is going to be eight in the morning where I'm at because I'm in Florida too. So it's tough sometimes to get up that early to be prepared, and then you want to stay up late because I'm more of a night owl when I work. But yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning. I think we're going to keep doing it that way. And then yeah, someone was asking about the links. You think you just got that? And then I missed it. I can't go back and find it. The person was asking about yes, 8 a.m. Diana. And that's Eastern time, U.S. Eastern time. And then someone was asking about podcasting equipment. Just so you know, this microphone, I paid $99 for it at a music store. By the way, if you're going to get microphone equipment, get it at a music store. Don't go get something at Best Buy. I mean, you can, but you know, Sweetwater Sound's a great place. You can get stuff online cheap. You can get them good at Amazon too sometimes, but go to a music store first and ask them because they do this pro audio stuff all the time. Like you got, what is that? Paul, is that a
Yeah,
Shure?
sure. Yeah, would definitely think we should dedicate an hour of an upcoming one with the kit that we use, and maybe even do.
Yeah.
I'll have my camera ready that day to kind of do a studio tour and
Yeah,
show
that'd
what's
be fun.
possible. Yeah,
Yeah, at
fantastic.
least those guys can get it started if they wanted to. I don't want that to hold them back. Say, well, I don't know what to do. It's like now you have everything. You can do it all. At least get a cover done. Get your first podcast episode done, even if it's just you talking about something you know something about, or you read something about, or you asked ChatGPT about. 15 minutes. Like just get in there and make it work.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. You've been part of history. You're going to be written in a book, a best-selling book about your participation here today. Actually, I think that's what we might do is do a little screenshot of everybody that was here and mention them somewhere in the book. That'd be awesome. Yeah, we will do that actually. We'll make sure all of you guys get mentioned somewhere in that book. Because you were part of, I
Yeah,
know it's a small piece of history, but it's fun. Hopefully it'll be really inspirational to you guys too, so you can do the same. And yeah, you can feel free to show it to your friends that you're been mentioned in a book. Very cool.
that's nice. All
Thanks,
right. Well, thanks
everybody.
everybody. And Paul, we'll catch up
Take care.
later next week. Okay.